Hello MotoGP fans. Welcome back to ZNGP Today. Development in MotoGP is a study in trade-offs. Gain in one area, lose in another. Marc Márquez has been clear about where he wants Ducati to tread carefully. Any front-end improvement must not come at the expense of rear grip. Haas boss Guenther Steiner has jumped into MotoGP as CEO and co-owner of Tech 3, and he's already sizing up the paddock, the talent and the work ahead. Steiner brings 4 decades of motorsport experience, a blunt playbook, and a plan to learn first before reshaping the team. Davide Tardozzi has been front and center for Ducati's dominant 2025, but even a stellar season had its painful moments. In a candid segment of the DAZN documentary, Tardozzi reflects on the ugly scenes at Mugello when the crowd booed Marc Márquez. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. Márquez starts from a simple premise. Everyone in the garage wants to make the bike better. But better is rarely unambiguous. An adjustment that helps a corner entry might worsen exit or tire life elsewhere. That realism frames Ducati's winter choices. Incremental, measured changes rather than radical redesigns that could create fresh problems. I mean, of course, you always try to improve. And yeah, in a bike, if you have a better front feeling, then because the front tire is always the most critical one for a rider. The front tire is the gateway to faster lap times, but chasing felt improvements there is not automatically the right move if it destabilizes the package elsewhere. This is the heart of Márquez's warning. Many riders want a more communicative front end. It inspires confidence on corner entry and allows later braking, yet that often comes at a cost. A looser, less planted rear that undermines drive and mid-corner stability. For Márquez, the development question is not which area to target first, but how to balance changes so the net gain is positive across circuits and conditions. But normally when you improve the front, you lose some rear grip, for example. And you need to find the right compromise. The key word is compromise. Ducati must choose an operating point that maximizes performance without sacrificing the bike's versatility. Márquez pinpointed the post-Aragon test as a technical turning point. Small geometry tweaks and new aero pieces didn't reinvent the DAZN set-aside overnight, but they moved setup and feel into a range that suited him better. That shift illustrates how evolutionary, not revolutionary, changes can produce big on-track effects when they align with rider style and confidence. Yes, since the Aragon test, we made a step. We did a step in bike setup and also with aerodynamics. That measured step closed the gap between him and other Ducati riders and helped turn a nervy early season package into something easier to manage. Márquez describes the early season as riding a more nervous bike, a machine that demanded constant vigilance and made extracting consistent laps harder. The development aim wasn't headline top speed or radical aero gains. It was to find a geometry and aero balance that made the DAZN set-aside more forgiving and predictable across race distances. For the reigning champion, that translates into fewer surprises and more repeatable racecraft. So in the first part of the season I was riding with a different bike, more nervous, but after the Aragon test, it's a bike that is easier to ride. Easier to ride is the practical gold. It lets a rider exploit strengths without being hostage to quirks that cost laps and tire life. Marc Márquez's message to Ducati is cautious and precise. Push the front end where it helps, but never lose sight of rear stability. The Aragon adjustments show the value of small, targeted steps that improve consistency rather than chase headline gains. As Ducati finalizes its 2026 direction, the brief is clear. Find the compromise that wins across the calendar, not just on a single circuit. Steiner explained his attraction plainly. MotoGP is visceral and close-quarters racing where individual rider skill still dominates. Unlike F1's car-centric battles, here the man on the bike makes the difference in tight fights. That human duel, riders fighting, man to man, is what excites him and what convinced him to invest time and energy in the sport. In MotoGP, it's much more down to the rider than the driver in Formula One. That rider-first DNA shapes Tech 3's near-term priorities: recruit talent who can extract margins in wheel-to-wheel combat, and build a team that supports intense, rider-led performance development. Steiner isn't promising instant miracles. He repeatedly underlined respect for MotoGP's experts and said his first months will be spent listening and learning. Real success will demand patience. He thinks it will take 3 to 5 years to properly rebuild Tech 3 into a contender. That timeframe reflects the complexity of MotoGP. You can't simply transplant F1 methods and expect immediate wins. Experience is earned, and Steiner wants to earn it the right way. It will take 3 to 5 years to build everything up and put our feet under the table. The message is deliberately sober. Tech 3 aims for steady infrastructure and cultural gains, not quick PR headlines. Steiner pointed to Tech 3's pedigree and recent flashes of performance as proof that independent squads still matter. The team has led races and taken podiums, and crucially, a privately run Ducati rider won the 2024 title. That proves MotoGP's openness. With the right organization, a private team can punch above its weight. Steiner wants to combine that belief with his motorsport experience to scale Tech 3 back toward consistent competitiveness. In MotoGP, an independent team can win a championship. That's the strategic North Star for Tech 3. Build the capability to exploit opportunities when they appear, without overpromising on an unrealistic timetable. When asked a headline question about the sport's greats, Steiner named 2 names: Valentino Rossi for charisma and versatility, and Marc Márquez for raw cutting-edge talent. He even likened Márquez to F1's Max Verstappen, a compliment about innate competitiveness and that extra fraction that separates the elite. That assessment signals where Steiner places value: riders who combine fierce competitive instinct with technical intelligence. Marc is the Max Verstappen of MotoGP. He's just got that edge, that little bit more. That admiration also hints at Tech 3's ambitions: find or develop riders with that same fearless instinct, and give them a team capable of turning edge into race-winning results. Guenther Steiner's entry into MotoGP is pragmatic, candid, and long-term. He didn't arrive with overhaul blueprints. He arrived with respect for the sport, an appetite to learn, and a multi-year plan to build Tech 3 back up. If his F1 tenure taught him anything, it's that structural patience plus sharp decision-making can transform teams. But it takes time. Over the next 3 to 5 years, the paddock will be watching whether Steiner's blend of motorsport experience and humility can convert Tech 3's proud history into a modern success story. For a team boss, the grandstands are part of the workplace. Tardozzi described seeing a sea of red and hearing boos as a visceral, personal blow, not only to Márquez but to the spirit of the event. Mugello is Ducati heartland. The expectation is celebration, not contempt. For him, it wasn't a tactical issue or a result to analyze. It was an emotional cut that lingered. It was a very difficult moment for me because when I saw the grandstand at Mugello, where more than 50% were wearing red shirts. That image, red shirts turning to boos, is the picture Tardozzi says he still carries, and it's why he publicly pushed back so hard. Tardozzi framed the reaction as disrespectful to the sport's basic etiquette. Whether you love or loathe a rider, the top step deserves respect. In a paddock where margins are tiny and effort monumental, booing the winner is a breach of coarse sporting civility. For Ducati's boss, it crossed a line that needed calling out. A rider of Marc's caliber, who rides a Ducati at Mugello, and has won, shouldn't be booed. It's a blunt defense. The podium is sacred, and the applause should follow performance, not grudges. Tardozzi's frustration isn't only with the moment itself but with the decade-long hangover from 2015. He asked fans to move on. 10 years is long enough to let the past be past. His language was as much about protecting the sport's future as about defending a rider. Continued hostility from a vocal minority tarnishes the spectacle for everyone. Enough is enough, You're not a true motorcycle fan if you keep dwelling on that. That's a call to the community. Celebrate the racing, not rehearse old feuds. Tardozzi didn't absolve Márquez. He acknowledged the episode stemmed from a two-way story. The 2015 fallout involved mistakes on both sides, and continuing to lay blame on one person is unfair. For Tardozzi, reconciliation and perspective matter more than perpetual finger-pointing. The blame is split 50-50. Marc made mistakes, and Valentino Rossi made mistakes, so enough. That balanced take reframes the moment as human error on all sides, not a reason to persistently punish a rider. Davide Tardozzi's reaction to the Mugello booing is equal parts defense, frustration, and a plea for maturity. For him, last season's success shouldn't be overshadowed by a lingering grudge from a decade ago. Respect the podium, learn from the past, and let the sport move forward. As the paddock turns its focus to testing in the new season, his message is clear: celebrate the racing, and leave the grudges behind. Thanks for watching ZNGP Today, and this is your MotoGP news update. And see you next time!